Welcome everyone. The topic for the day is project communication. We will be talking everything related to projects and the communication. So, first and foremost is the management of communication. What exactly should be the process? Remember, it has to be time oriented to an appropriate audiences and the relevant discussions should be given around here. So, what I'm looking at appropriate audiences on a timely basis and relevant content should be distributed. So, it's a process required for ensuring timely and appropriate generation, collection, distribution, storage, recovery, and ultimate disposition of project information. Exactly what I have said around it. It has to be time bound, it has to be time pertinent, it has to be the relevant content and to the relevant audience that we look into it. So that is exactly communication management. Why? Exactly, tell me, why do we require to manage communication? Because of the complexity. Project managers, there are certain complexity comes around with the project itself. Remember, every project is a work in progress. It's a transition phase that comes around it, and people are not aware of the what exactly is the right dictum. So we need to have a communication which changes from time to time, and it seems to be very complex in orientation. So what exactly is required is a choice that's between the senders and the receiver model, the choice of the media, the writing style, the presentation technique, and the meeting management. Herein, we need to understand what are those models that we keep on going around it. Has it to be informal, formal, complex? Do we require to keep an evidence around it? What are the choices of media that comes around which we require to go for? Now, these are things that needs to be taken time and again. We need to notify it as often as possible. Then we need to choose the channel through which communication has to happen. The writing style, it is how convenient you are you, how aware you are of your colleagues. Is it an in-house communication? Is it a communication to an external stakeholder? The presentation technique thereby and the meeting arrangements that need gone for. So essentially communication is all about these five steps and things that comes around it. First and foremost thing is we encode. So we have an encoding out which comes around it, and then there is something called a decode factor that comes at the end of it. So we have an encode translate to the language, output of encoding. The medium is the channel that we go around across it. There is something called noise. It is the interference that comes around during the transmission or in understanding, or let's say even in encoding or decoding process. And decoding is basically translating it back to the very idea, the thought that we are looking into it. So look here, this is the pictorial representation of encoding, decoding, and decoding and encoding. This is, remember, is the feedback, and this is the message out here. So this goes this arrow, and this goes this arrow, as has been clearly told around here. And in between is the channel that we talk about it. So this is exactly communication model that we are looking at it. Essentially, remember, communication model implies on feedback requirement. This is the fundamental thing that is required. So we have the non-verbal, paralingual, active listening, and effective listening as all about it. Remember, non-verbal communication is the 55%. The majority crux of the communication takes place on a non-verbal fashion. Then comes the paralingual. Now, what is paralingual? Is the modulation of your tone, is the pitch of your voice that needs to be attained. Are you saying something in an angry fashion? Are you saying with a very calm face? Now, people are going to make different connotation with the pitch or the modulation that you go around it. Yes, definitely yes. Listening is most important for communication, and should I mention, this is the most overlooked situation altogether. So receiver confirm message and asks for clarification. Then comes the effective listening. Effective listening is receiver pays attention, thoughtfully responds, and provides relevant feedback. That is what we are looking at it. Receiver pays the attention, thoughtfully responds, and provides the relevant feedback that we look into it. Now, how do we manage communication? There are five processes around it. Identify the stakeholders, and I will be talking about each stakeholders with the subsequent slides that we mentioned out here. Those five stakeholders. Accordingly, once you have identified it, then plan your communication. distribute the information accordingly, and manage stakeholder expectation. This is where we need to go for reporting or getting our feedback all together. So identify with who is your audience is, then accordingly plan your pitch, plan your tone, plan your communication, then distribute or execute the work around it, and probably come back with their feedbacks and what has been going around, and decide whether your planning has gone as you have desired altogether. Is what we going about. The previous was identifying stakeholders. Now this time it will be planning the communication. Now what do we go around it? In this, the tools and technique is the requirement analysis. Are you speaking to a technically know-how person altogether? So feel free to use the jargon and make the communication as relevant and or should I say as precise as followable as it can be followed. If not, you have to speak on a general terms. Believe me, general terms things get a little bit vague. If it requires, please utilize the official lingo or the technical lingo that is made in demand. So communication technology, definitely yes. Medium technology that you're looking into it, the models which you're going to go around it, and the methods thereby. This is very important. The methods that we are looking out here. So that is what the tools and techniques would be done for planning of the communication. What are the outputs? This is the output. This is the output. Communication management plan and project document updates. Therein it comes up. These are the documents that comes around it. Let us come to the next thing. Remember, I believe this is the number of channels that come across. I've been keeping on telling it to you. It's n into n minus 1 divided by 2. So if there are two people talking about it, 2 into 1 by 2, that means only straight face-to-face communication has been talking around here. If it is 5 people talking, that means 5 minus 1 is 4, 5 fours are 20, divided by 2 is 10. Then that means there will be 10 modes of communication channel. Chances of leakages, chances of noise filtering is very high. The number of channel increases, the chances become very, very high. Remember, in 1 and 2%, between 2%, there are no leakages as such because you are speaking directly. So you need to tell me who needs to know and how much is important. Communicate good and bad, but not too much to affect the team. That's what very to be told time and again. Communication channel grows exponential and not linearly as the team members have been added as on basis. Now, talking about the communication management plan, what, who, when, how information has to be distributed. This is the third step that comes around it. Here is the step that we're looking into it. The distribution frequency. Do we have to have meeting every day? Should we have a meeting every week, every month, every quarters? What are the revisions that needs to be technically notified? What are the updates that has to be given around it? So you need to tell me the frequencies out here. The champions will be telling. The project managers are the person who is going to do it. In case things are not going as per the plan in terms of the projects, then probably we have to have frequent meetings and presentations. That is the communication management plan is all about, answering who, what, when, and how information is to be distributed. Remember, these are the technical know-how that comes around it. We have to probably speak it out. The communication jargon that needs to be discussed time and again, right? Yes, when we come to the third step of distribution of information, this is the technical tools where communication methods and information distribution tools are gone about. And the output is the most important output, the organizational updates, the process updates, the assess updates. Remember, this has to be in keen with the project management plan that has been given around it. The performance report that has to be done. So we can have future orientation, the progress report, and the updates that as on when on basis that keep on happening around it. Looking forward to the distribution technique, and this is where we say it should be boiled down to black and white. Why black and white? That means there is nothing, no chance left for any sort of imagination. That is very true. So PM sort and distribute. What is PM sort and distribute? It's nothing but abbreviation for project management. So small projects, small issues, on timely delivery, please resolve it on your own fashion. Document control and sort. What will be talking about it? This is all about miss size where needs to be documented. Absolutely needs to be documented altogether. Every nitty-gritty incident needs to be done. It has to be situated in the Kanban motive and probably properly documented altogether. Issues with retention of staff qualified to sort info. Document control notification, daily list of all docs received email to the team who are directed to the central location for the document review as often as not. That has been mentioned out here. So this is where the control team will be going around it, and probably it will be acting as a hub for all sort of reference materials and the documentation that goes around. It needs to be collated at that point. So we have this distribution technique. Let us look at the verbal part. Remember, again, the non-verbal is the dominant procedures for the communication process or extracting information. We look for signs from the non-verbal thing. 38% is the pitch, the tone, the modulation that of the word that comes around it, and only remember less than 10%, that is approximately 7%, is the words of the content that matters. What happens, what goes wrong is that we give up emphasis about here as 55% altogether, and probably to the non-verbal percent as 7%. Now this is where the communication goes wrong altogether. So please look at your weightage. It is the way you carry yourself, the way you conduct yourself is what people are observing, and they get a vibe from the non-verbal signatures behavior that people exhibit. So a presentation style, excellently important. Remember, it has to be important at any point of time. We come to the fourth step of managing the stakeholders' expectation. Now, this is where the stakeholder registry, the project management plan, the change log, and so on so forth. This needs to be understood altogether. We have to speak what can be done and what is to be expected. Now, what are the tools and techniques is, it is the communication method that comes around it. Remember, the inputs are all your issue logs or the statement or the change log that comes around is the organizational process. Now, what happens with the output is all the updates, nothing else. Out here, it's an expectation, it's a work in progress that keeps on happening. We have to give the asset updates, we have to give the change request update, we have to give the project plan update, the document update, everything. This needs to be documented. At times, to be infuse a confidence building measure, we can often go for a presentation style, or let's say an overview actual site visit of the project, as in where the project actually is. So why? Remember why stakeholder management is very important, because what did I say? We learn only 10% from reading and 90% from what we teach altogether. It is the 80% of the experience, the 50% that we discuss, 30% that we read and hear, and 20% of hearing. Remember, people like to read a lot and think that they will gather the knowledge. Sorry. People think they will be keeping a good company and will assimilate the best practices by just being in the good company. Again, a wrong concept altogether. People say we'll have a combination of reading and hearing, probably 30%, definitely. Probably to a certain extent you can learn something, but believe me, until and unless the moment from this stage onward where you get involved in the process of discussion, definitely you learn 50%. In when you experience certain things, when you undergo as a first-hand person, definitely you will learn a lot. And probably when you teach, essentially as and when you teach, not only you can teach or become a good teacher, the moment you have experienced it, the moment you have gone through the scrutiny altogether, the moment you have undergone the grind, and then probably you emerge victorious and assimilate the practices of reading, hearing, discussing, and probably experiences. That is when the 90% work you most likely to understand. So that is what managing the stakeholders is all about. It agreements without documentation will definitely come back to haunt you, will haunt your bones freaking. So please remember, we come to the fifth step altogether, the report performance, the last step of project communication. Now remember, the original plan was to have the plans, the work plans, information sheets, the work measures, and believe me, the output is the performance report, is the assessment, is the culmination of projects, the change request, the change that has been incorporated after it has been initiated from the project. So what are those things that can't be recommended is the variance analysis, the forecasting methods, the communication methods, the reporting system that needs to be generated time in, time out. We need to think it out time again. This is where we are going to make differences. Then we come to the very last slide of the day. Now, what are the performance report that comes around it? Most performance reports are with the help of a Gantt chart or an S curves, histograms, or an EVA table. So this is the variance, expected variance tables or analysis. What we are looking into is the value, the variances, the performances that we talk about it. I've just given you a sample around it. It will tell you about the pre-pilot, the checklist, the curriculum, the midterm evaluation, the implementation, the practice manual, and the rollout or the execution plan, wherein we are looking at 0.93 percentage or 93 percentile as the cost effectiveness is concerned. Now, this is just a sample template of a report that comes around it. Most common reports are Gantt chart, S-curve, histograms, absolutely for sure. And with this, we come to an end of this particular presentation. Thank you for watching this video.